Parallel Lives. I'm Dimmer, and this is my co-host Q.
Hello, everybody.
Today, we are talking with Liz from New York about when we realized we had MD. So, not how you found out about it, but what about, your behavior and your feelings made you realize that this thing was what it was. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
So start at the beginning. How old would you say you were ish when you realized that you were daydreaming like this, like air quotes? Maybe it wasn't maladaptive yet, but you definitely noticed a behavior that was different from other people your age or kids your age.
Maybe in my 20s. Yeah.
Oh, all the way in your 20s. I don't.
Right, because I just thought everybody did it. So I never knew there was a difference.
Well, I shouldn't have acted so surprised to that. It made you feel like, oh, that's weird. My experience is just so very different that I was not expecting that answer.
Well, no, mine was pretty late too. I only started understanding that it was unusual. Like when I got to university, because growing up all throughout grade school, I was sort of the outcast. I sort of was on my own, so I didn't really have anything to compare it to. All I knew was that if my classes were really boring, I would zone out, and then I'd come back, and I didn't really have to care. So that's what it was before then, right? I just considered it daydreaming. I didn't realize people were not as in depth with their daydreams as I was until university, and then I actually started finding information on it online.
I knew really early, like as a child. I remember knowing this is not something I share. It's weird.
Mm-hmm.
But do you guys have siblings? Maybe it's because I had siblings to compare myself to.
I have a brother, but an older brother, but he had already moved out, so it was pretty much me in the house and my parents. So yeah, I couldn't even really compare me to him in that respect.
Mm-hmm. No, I have a younger brother that's actually pretty close. He's actually pretty close by a couple of years. So he and I were in school together, but of course different grades. He was out with his friend group. He was a real socialite. He had a ton of friends, and I didn't really have any friends. So we were pretty disconnected as well, right? So, but that's kind of how siblings are, I think. At least in my experience, they sort of keep to themselves. They're not exactly super duper close, if that makes sense.
Yeah, my siblings were close in age to me, so when I was younger, I played with them a lot.
Mm-hmm. No, my siblings and I, or my brother and I, we would play video games together. But other than that, we had different interests, and he had a blast outside, and I was very much an inside sort of guy. But no, it was we played a lot when we were younger. Evidently, we're doing the classic brothers punching and kicking one another sort of deal. But other than that, it's when it came to daydreams and stuff, I just didn't tell anybody about it. Whenever I tried to tell somebody something about my life, I got laughed at, so I just kind of kept it all sort of bottled up, and I guess that sort of bottled up seed grew into maladaptive daydreaming. At least that's how I see it from my perspective.
Now that I think about it, I mean, I guess I didn't really realize again that it was different. I would be listening to music and I'd realize a lot of time has passed. Where has the time gone? And I'm not technically conscious of being in my room. An hour would go by and then another hour. But again, I just thought that people did that when they listened to music.
Oh
It
yeah.
wasn't. It wasn't something that I thought was out of the norm until I was older. Around the time I found out about MD, that's when there was a name, and I'm like, that's what I do. So, yeah. So that's why for me it was older.
Mm-hmm. No, for me it was in the car. I never like Liz. I never thought it was strange, but when I was in the car, I would always put on music because like for instance, if you're driving like cross country or whatever, because I'm in the United States, car rides to go to places can get up to like 6 to 8 to 10 to 12 to 14 hours, right? Sometimes you go days where you're just driving to get from one side of the country to another, and I would get really, really bored, and so I would put on music and just daydream the entire way. And for me, it was more of like a pragmatic thing where I'd say, okay, I don't want to sit here for 14 to like 20, 100 hours being incredibly bored. I'll just daydream and have the time pass by super fast, right? Red Halo's in the chat, and he says that maladaptive daydreamers are the champions of not getting bored. Yes, we always have something to do, and I think that's one of those like reasons that we sort of like inevitably find ourselves falling into the pit, right? Is it's like you're
Yeah.
never bored. So once you get far enough down the hole, like you are in it. You're like in the maladaptive daydreaming sort of like cave where you just have all of these beautiful things. But that's like farther down the line, right? We're talking way up here at the start when you don't really know, right?
Yeah.
But I think that's a big reason as to why we're not like we sort of fall into it and we don't quite know, right? It just sort of happens. What about you, Dimmer?
I always knew it was weird. I don't know how I knew. I assume I figured it out naturally through play as a small child. But yeah, no, I never had that I never had that feeling of like, well, maybe everybody does this. Well, I did. Okay, I did, but not until I was an adult. As an adult, I started looking for other people like me, but maladaptive daydreaming didn't exist when I started searching for it. Like you couldn't Google it yet. So I wasn't finding anybody. So since like I didn't find anything on the entire goddamn internet, I was like, well, maybe either there's not other people like me, which is impossible. So the only other option is everyone's like me and there's something wrong with me. Like I can't handle a perfectly normal thing that everybody does.
Hmm. Well, it's like okay, so you knew it was different, right? Like you knew it was different, but like you thought there was something wrong with you. Like I think there can be a little bit of a difference there where like if you know you're different, but you don't think it's a problem, like it's fine, right? Like you wouldn't really worry about it if you didn't think it was a problem, right? Like but you evidently had like some sort of issue with it, right? Or you were you felt a little unusual sort of having this maladaptive daydreaming thing going on, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I knew it was weird since a very young age. I knew it was different. There was something there. I did not. You're right, though. I didn't worry about it. Children don't give a.
They
Yeah.
don't care. They don't care.
Yeah, they don't care.
Yeah.
Children
They
don't
just
care.
play it and have fun, and
Yeah, it wasn't until adolescence when that I realized, yeah, oh wait, no, there's something wrong. Like I'm not growing out of something normal. I'm being left behind.
Mhm. Well, it's one of these things where it's like, at one point did it become like a problem, right? Like it was interfering with your life because like sometimes like it's fine not to grow out of things. To be honest, it's like you can have your favorite like your favorite dinosaur, your favorite like my favorite letter is the letter Q, right? Because it has a little tail and it comes with a little friend, you, right? It's fine to have like childlike sense of wonder that you don't grow out of, but like I think growing out of it, like you grow out of some things because it becomes a problem later on down the line for you to function, right? If that makes sense. So like did it ever like become an issue or did you like feel disconnected by having it, right?
Yeah, that was. I mean, it's hard. I can't pinpoint when it became maladaptive. Like I noticed it very early in my life. I started getting worried about it. Um, in those like puberty years, 10, 11, 12. I think it flipped to maladaptive somewhere in my mid-teens. Definitely by 14 or 15.
I'm with Dimmer on that. I definitely think now, looking back, it definitely became maladaptive for me in teens and definitely into my 20s, and probably more so since I found out that what it is exactly, what maladaptive actually means. Because when I first heard of maladaptive daydreaming, I didn't know what that word meant. So then I'm like, yeah, I can see why that would definitely be me. So I can relate to what Dimmer said.
So let's fall down that rabbit hole for a sec. So okay, so we're doing whatever we do, and then we all came across the words maladaptive daydreaming. What was it like from there? You saw those words on the screen, and then what?
For me, it was like almost shocking. Like this is like I said before, like this is an actual thing. And I looked up the word, and I could kind of understand it. I could kind of see, okay, it's like a coping mechanism or like an unhealthy coping mechanism. So that I understood, again, a little bit, but I guess I didn't see it as like a problem. You know, like, well, I'm not going to change, you know. This is this
Oh yeah.
I'm not changing. You know, I compared to everything else, you know, anything else I could be doing that's quote unquote maybe not the best thing to do. You know, I figured this, I can keep this. I know, you know, it's a, you know, okay, yes, maybe there are healthier things I could do, but this is something I don't want to get rid of. That's why I really can't relate to those that are working towards not daydreaming.
Yeah, we don't well, I don't want to say we because I don't want to speak for anybody else, but I don't condone that. I condone getting rid of the maladaptive part. I think trying to stop yourself from daydreaming ever at all is really unhealthy.
The way that it ended up panning out for me was it was kind of strange, right? So like I had some sense of like I knew it was hard to do things. Like I knew it was hard to do homework and like get myself to do things or you know go and be productive in one way or another. And like I just my solution, I don't know if this was a good solution, but my solution was to literally trudge through the muck. Like if daydreaming is like pulling you into this like this sinking like swamp, I am literally going to push through it with every ounce of my being. Which is why I just ended up daydreaming a lot anyways. But you know, I couldn't choose to not do things, at least not in my position I was at the time. I like couldn't not do anything. So I did the things like the school and the work and all of that to appease the people in my life. But then, you know, to make myself feel better, I would daydream. And it's like at that point in my life, I was like, I don't really care if it's bad for me. Like I'm using it as a tool to keep me from going insane, right? Like it was very much a balancing act. Like well actually I knew it was unusual, but I never had the opportunity to consider it bad.
All right, let's back up. What made you think you had MD? What when you looked at those words, you looked at whatever description you found.
Yeah.
What made you think that was actually what you had?
Well, because I knew that my daydreams, when I saw the video that I saw, I knew that it matched exactly what I did. Number one, the way they described it. And also because I would rather be, I don't know if this answers the question, but at that point, I would have definitely rather be in the daydreams than in the reality, in the moment, where I would just, couldn't wait to the day was over, couldn't wait where I could just daydream. So that's when I also realized that something's not right. That I know I shouldn't feel that way. But it made me happy, right? So if something makes you happy, you're not gonna stop doing it.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Very tempting.
But I know that it's not good to not want to be in reality. It's not healthy.
The way I always described it is it's not feasible, right? Like I think there's like you can like decide to have your own worlds and be healthy, right? Like there's people out there who evidently like, you know, any kind of like fiction writer, right? Like you have your worlds that you write down and you can
Yeah.
be healthy in doing so. But it's like there's a limit at which you can stay in that world. It makes it not feasible. That's how I always explain it.
Yeah, that makes sense.
When I saw like maladaptive daydreaming and thought it looked at the description, I didn't think of like being bitter or whatever, because it was one of the few things that kept me sane throughout, my life as I got older.
Yeah.
But I made it was incredibly accurate, because the older I got, the less, the less I saw people doing what I was doing, right? Whether or not it was good, at that point, it didn't really matter, because I was still trudging through the muck, right? Like, I was still pushing forward as best I could, and I only hit a wall like partway through university. So like at the time that I had learned of maladaptive daydreaming, I was still doing fine, kind of, like, depending on your definition. But when I looked at it, I saw a very accurate description of my behavior that was incredibly different from my peers. And I said, that makes sense. And then I started looking deeper into it. And then, I found the Discord and the Reddit and all of that.
I never searched. It's funny. I never searched for maladaptive daydreaming. I don't know how YouTube. They're very weird. A video came up on my feed.
What video? I
It was
need to
by
know.
NPR. NPR put
Oh,
out like a
yeah.
2 minute. And I said, "Oh, what's this? Maladaptive." I, again, didn't know what the word maladaptive meant. So I thought maybe it meant like, immersive or something like, or descriptive. So I watched it and I'm like, whoa, this is a thing. And, then I just said, oh, let me search, like, to see if there's anything else. And then there was a Facebook. And then when I joined Reddit, I just happened to search. And then Reddit brought me to the Discord. And here we are. So it kind of just found me. I never searched for it because I just, at some point I thought I had another one of these mental, like I thought like there was something else wrong with me. So
Mhm.
I never really, I didn't know what to search for if I was going to search.
I'm looking back on it. I don't know exactly how I found the article or the description or whatever. I just remember seeing the description, and that was like the start. How I got there is apparently irrelevant to my brain, because I can't remember that. It just sort of like appeared in my head, or it appeared on the screen. It was very strange. Like, I did one of my sort of deep dives on, like, it was probably maybe something where I was diving through Wikipedia or just like searching on the internet or something like that. It's like Liz said, it just kind of found me. But I guess it's
Yeah.
inevitable, right? I guess it's inevitable with the internet being as large as it is, right? You inevitably start to be curious and look, or the YouTube algorithm or whatever internet algorithm,
That's
take your pick.
scary because they can just read your mind. That
Yeah, a lot of people these days are just getting it recommended to them, which is like crazy. But no, like TikTok, none of that existed when I started looking for maladaptive daydreaming. Like I scoured the early internet and there was just nothing.
There's a lot that goes into like finding out what maladaptive daydreaming is.
Okay. Was there anything that made you guys think, "Oh, wait, actually this isn't what I have." Like did you have those moments of doubt when you were, like first learning about it?
yeah.
Well,
I mean because I again trying to figure out, trying to understand maladaptive, trying to like maybe deny that my daydreaming isn't bad or it's not taking me away. Like it's I don't do it for like 8 hours straight or sometimes I read that people say they do it for hours and hours. Like that's not me. So I'm like, oh, to me, it's not that bad, or it's not to the amount of time is not to the extreme. So that's why even now I say I don't really have to change anything. But I think I do because of the after effects and other things. So I do realize in other ways how it's a problem for me. Not just in the length of time or what I daydream about, but just what I experience after.
Yeah, oh my god, we have to say that all the time. There's no magic number. No magic number that makes you a maladaptive daydreamer. Some people go for hours, some people go in little spurts.
Hmm.
It's the effect, like you were just saying. It's
Yeah.
the after that makes it maladaptive.
Yeah, no, for me personally, I did I have doubt? Yes, I did, because I didn't know what it was. I didn't know when I first saw. I just got
Yeah.
really curious because like whether or not it was good or bad or not, right? I look, maladaptive. I looked up later, and of course, it's not exactly good for you. But then again, at that time, most people said that relaxing wasn't good for me, and I should just go, 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 go until like I drop dead or
Hmm.
whatever from like working really hard. So I didn't exactly trust what other people said at the time, but when it came to maladaptive daydreaming, the more I learned about it, I'm like, that sounds just about right. I'll daydream for hours. I don't really care. I have to set an alarm to get me out of it. And at the time, it was like when I got to university first year, I would set an alarm like an hour before my class, and then like half an hour, and then 15 minutes, so that I would just get knocked out of my daydreaming enough to go to my class, right? And it's like when it came to like fixing it, I just like because it's supposed maladaptive daydreaming. Like maladaptive is bad, right? It's just
Hmm.
like an aggressively addictive thing. I wasn't like trying to convince myself that I wasn't that, because at the time I was just like, this sounds very accurate, right? But this was
Hmm.
at a time where I was like, am I an old soul or all of that? All those sort of are like clickbait articles on the internet that you find, and that
Yeah.
might have been where I found it, but I never really tried to convince myself that I wasn't. I had my doubts, but it wasn't like a in denial sort of deal for me.
Yeah. This is gonna sound so weird, but I had zero doubts. I hadn't even finished reading the description before I was like, this is it. This is what I've
Yeah.
been searching for years. Zero doubts. I immediately like
Where did
started
you
trying
find
to
it?
find community on the internet. I'd been searching for it for years. I just Googled it, every few months. And finally something popped up.
Well, it's good to know you found something. Do you know what year it was that you found it in particular? Because this was
Uh,
early internet, right? It must have been like the 2000s, maybe early 2010s, perhaps.
yeah, I think it was like right around 2010, actually. I think it was 2009, maybe 2011.
And there was nothing at that time real, like even before then, there wasn't much info.
Somer had put out his thing in 2002, the first paper. It didn't get paid attention to at all
Wow.
Hmm.
until 2009. 2009 is when some Americans, Jane Rachel actually, found his first paper and then started trying to get a study done. And 2009 and 2011, between there were like three more papers were put out. So that's when it really started picking up on the internet, because they had to go out and find other people who did it, find people who could participate in these studies, and they started building a community, Wild Minds. And that is what I found. I think Wild Minds was made in 2009.
Okay. Yep.
Wow.
So technically, as of now, we're recording in June of 2022. We're still technically, well, I mean, I guess we're still really in the progenitus of this sort of research and this sort of study, because 10 years isn't exactly. Would you say 10 years is a lot for this? Because like we're like, what is it? You said 2011 was when the first study was done.
2002 was the first one, and then nothing happened for years. It just sat in one obscure little corner of the internet until 2008, 2009, when Jane Rachel found it, because apparently she is way better at Google than I am. Like, we were both looking around the same time, but she found it. And then luckily she found it because she um has the resources. She had
Yeah.
the career and the resources to get people to take it seriously, to get people to conduct more studies on it, and she did that.
So even if I had looked, it probably wouldn't have even, I wouldn't have been able to find anything either if I had looked years ago.
Yeah, probably not.
Yeah, so like 10 years and like 12 years, and the community is still fairly small comparatively to like other places on the internet by far. So it's like we're still growing, I think. Not that I'm going to say that's a good thing. I would not say that maladaptive daydreaming is a good thing, but it's good to know that there are people out there who can find us and sort of find a community.
Yeah. And there was nothing back then, like, for a few years there. I mean, maybe finding it. I don't want to say finding it later would have been better for me, but finding it later, like finding it this year or last year, or even the year before that, finding it in like the last few years when there's been this explosion of research and awareness and communities. There wasn't any of that when I initially found it. There was Wild Minds, and I didn't even get accepted for membership there until like months later. Eventually, I found the subreddit. But even then, like people were just throwing out crazy theories. There was so much crazy stuff because there was so little information.
Well, but you know what? It's one of these things where it's like daydreaming is so ubiquitous to like everybody, because everybody daydreams, right? At least a little bit,
Yeah.
right? We all have our like sort of fantasies or ideals, right? And we desire them, so like then we like imagine them, right? That's where that sort of creativity comes from. That's like the progenitus of creation when it comes to humanity, right? That's how stories are written and made,
Mm-hmm.
right? But so like everybody does it. Everybody likes a good story. There, I can't think of a single person who doesn't like a good story. But when it comes to like getting overly attached to it, that's sort of the
Mm-hmm.
unusual part. And we talked a little bit about how when we were younger, or even older, right? Like we knew it was maybe not exactly it's like a little bit different at the very least. And
Mm-hmm.
you learned really early that it wasn't the exact same. But like falling, like you fall into it. At what point do you realize you realize you have a problem in adolescence, and then like I'm trying to think what happens after that, right? Because you start when you're young, and then you realize it's a bit of a problem, but you can't exactly stop. So that brings us here, right? It brings to present day, or at least present day, and then a couple of years prior, if that makes sense. Because let me see, I'm gonna scroll up because I swear to God I remember what we were talking about. Oh God. But like I'm just trying to go through the sort of timeline. You start and then you find out it's a problem, and then you have X, Y, and Z until like present day. Like what do you do? Like what did you end up doing? Like what did you try? We went over you, Dimmer, when you've been sort of growing this community. But Liz, have you just sort of been like dealing with it, or like how have you felt like going forward?
Well, I mean, maybe dealing with it is probably the best way to describe. I mean, again, I know that I know the difference, right? I know reality and daydream. I know that there's no way for me to be in the daydream, the way I wish I could. So it's sort of just like I kind of just have to deal with it. Like I really, I mean, I want to maybe get to a place where the after effects aren't what they are. But otherwise, like I said, I don't see myself changing. You know what I
Hmm.
mean? I don't know if I want to right now anyway. I don't know if I want to right now. Maybe if I get to a better. I am in therapy, so I could, am working on a lot of things. But I don't know if it's something that I want to change right now at this point.
Hmm. Well, that's one of those things where it's like you because it's so enticing. Like you don't exactly want to change yet, air quotes like asterisks is it's like yet, but then it's like does yet ever come? And I don't know,
Exactly. Right.
right? But it's like too attractive of an idea to just sort of keep it like right by you, like
Yeah.
nestled right by like a pet or a friend.
Yeah, that's exactly. I wanna keep it like a pet.
Yes.
And I don't want to give away my dog. I don't want to like put it down or like give it to somebody else.
Right.
Like, that's my dog, right? It's like I want to keep it. I just it's like you find yourself, it's like you were saying, Liz, where you start at point A and you wander and somehow find yourself in point B and you don't exactly know where to go. And we've talked a little bit
Yeah.
before about like what like you might be able to do, what works for you, that kind of stuff in the past. Now granted, I will say again that we're not exactly therapists, we're not doctors. But we were just simply talking from the perspective of maladaptive daydreamers, what worked for us. We've talked about it in a previous episode. If you all want to go back and look at that, but in terms of feeling lost, right? because you just sort of once you fall into it, it makes it very difficult to crawl out of the hole. If that makes sense. It's a really strange way of putting it, but like now you're here, and if you feel lost and you can't don't pick a direction, for me, I'd say not everybody agrees with me, but I'd say if you're lost and you don't know where to go, you don't know which direction to go, just pick a direction, pick one, pick any, right, whichever direction you want to go, and then you can move forward using whatever path you've decided, right? If you want to talk using a metaphor, right? Because now you're here, right? We all have maladaptive daydreaming, and we're kind of here, and we have it. And if we're going to, you can choose to work on it, you can choose not to work on it. But if I had to choose anything, just anything at all to improve, right? If you ask me, it's better. It's better. Okay, hold on. Go dimmer. Does it make any sense to you?
That makes sense. No, I was going to ask you if you were reading from the email.
No, I was not reading from the. I had read it a little bit earlier, but what really stuck out to me. So for those of you who don't know, we got an email. We got an email about doing this episode about what happens when you feel lost, because you inevitably find yourself stuck, right? Like how you got here is kind of important, right? But you're now in present day and you don't know where to go. And the word that really stuck out to me is feeling lost. Well, the exact word was I literally just saw it.
Should I read it for the audience?
Yes, you should.
Okay.
Ignore me mumbling.
All right. Yeah. This episode was a request from a listener. So they sent us an email, which I will read partially, not the whole thing, but I feel like most people, when they talk about maladaptive daydreaming, they always bring up how it negatively affects their lives. One of the things I, as someone who also daydreams a lot to the point where it's bad for my life, have a hard time with. It's just hard to see maladaptive daydreaming as a negative thing for me. I know it's bad, but at the moment, it gives me all I want. All I have to do is daydream, and it's all there. I feel like that's why it becomes an addiction. I agree.
Yeah, did I write
Oh,
that?
yeah.
No, I didn't
And
write
that's
that.
when it turns into a problem. But I just catch myself not wanting to stop or do anything about it. It's very hard to get help, as it's, still being studied and hasn't been listed as a disorder or anything. I just feel so lost, and I'm concerned I'll just keep living my life, ignoring how it's affecting it, because at the moment it feels so right. I can't even see what's bad about it. But then I realize I'm late for something, or that I feel like I did something that I haven't done yet, and it feels like escape from my real life, and I tune into my ideal wish of how it should be at the moment.
And the one word that caught my eye was lost, because when you're stuck in something like this, it makes it really hard to move forward, at least in my experience, if you don't know where to go, which is why when I didn't have anywhere to go, I just picked one answer. I chose one solution and tried to pursue it for as far as it would take me. And then if it didn't work, choose another direction, right? Point A to point B isn't always straight, right? Now that you're here at point B, getting to point C, which is, feeling better, in a better position in your life, it's not a straight line. So sometimes you just got to choose and pick things that might sort of improve, but it's important to know that you can change, right? That's the takeaway. You can change, you just need to work at it, right?
What caught my eye was where is it? I just lost it. I just catch myself not wanting to stop or do anything about it. Because I feel that all the time, even still. Yeah, some days I'm just like, fuck it. Fuck it, I'm gonna lay in this bed forever. I don't even care.
I noticed how they mentioned the ideal, like their ideal life, or idealizing their situation. I guess in comparison to what they're dealing with in their life in the present. And that's how I feel. I just put everything the way I feel like it should be in my daydream, and I'd rather be there because obviously that's easier than have to deal with it in reality where it's not ideal and I don't get what I want or what I need.
I feel like what they're trying to ask that maybe they didn't know how to say was like how do you know, or how do you tell the difference between I don't want to change because it's not actually a problem for me, and I don't want to change because I have an addiction, because I'm just not willing to.
It's it's a fine line in that case, right? Whether or
Yeah.
not you, and I think one of the big deciding factors is whether or not you want to change, or like the willing that you're
Yeah.
how willing you are to accept that you have a problem in the first place. This viewer,
Right, because that's the first step, realizing that you have
mhm.
the problem.
Oh
Yeah,
yeah,
it's one of the hardest steps too, I would
Yeah.
say.
oh absolutely, and it's the first one of the. This viewer evidently was willing to accept that they might have a problem, so that's the first step, right? Is like knowing that you have it, or at least accepting that you have it, is both the first, like you said, and most important step. So then you can
Mm-hmm.
move forward from there, right? You're not like permanently stuck, right? Like you
Right.
have you can change.
But I don't think they want to right now. Or maybe that's what they're trying to say. Like they know they should, but they don't want to because of the pull of the addiction and it feeling so good to them.
And
I just
oh,
quit smoking
absolutely.
last month, and
Oh,
I didn't.
congratulations.
Thank
Yeah,
you, but I didn't want to.
yeah. That's the thing. First of all,
I like smoking.
But you knew that it would be better if you did.
But I knew, yeah, I knew it would be better. I knew it was bad for me. And fucking Halo is in the chat, becoming my spirit animal.
Mhm. Oh yes.
When I when I learned that MD caused so many negatives, it was like a betrayal. Like the thing I love to do did all of this. I
Mhm.
feel that. Yeah, I felt that too.
Yeah. Hate, bitterness. There's a lot of different ways that over time when you find out, like when you find out what maladaptive daydreaming is. For me, I was curious more so than hateful, but different people react different
Right.
ways, and they're all very valid ways to react, right, to any kind of addiction, right? Like once you realize it's a problem and that you have a problem, like the desire to get better is something that a lot of us have, and
I didn't feel really I didn't feel like upset about it or I was just glad to know that it was something.
mhm,
Um I realized that it's an issue, but I didn't feel like anger or sadness or anything like upset. I was
mhm,
just glad to know there was something, so it wasn't all in my head. Like me crying because something happened, in reality, and it was supposed to be another way, like in my daydream. Like I really thought
mhm,
that I thought I'm nuts, right? I really use that word, but so realizing, about maladaptive daydreaming, I was just glad that it was something, and that I guess other people dealt with it too, knowing, I figured since there was a video on it, not knowing anything else was out there on it, I figured since there's a video, then other people must deal with this too.
mhm. When it comes to how I feel these days, right? Because I used to be really annoyed, and in particular when I got to a point where I literally couldn't, when I said like you trudge through the swamp. Well, there was a point at which I was simply too deep into the swamp to trudge through it anymore. Um, I felt really frustrated, mostly because my previous means of dealing with it were not working. I couldn't function. I couldn't do anything, and I was simply stuck. And I was kind of mad. I was kind of mad. I was frustrated.
It's hard to figure out. I had this thought. Okay, I might derail us, but
Fine,
like
works for me.
like I said, I've been quitting smoking, and my husband sent me a video that it's a video by BoastWiki. It's called "Why Smart People Smoke." Um, it's yeah, it's like Dave Chappelle. Why smart people
Mhm,
smoke, but it has nothing to do with Dave Chappelle. I don't I don't know why that's the title. Um, and this is not. I'm not. This is the only video I have ever seen by this channel. It's just some random thing my husband sent me. I'm not what's the word? Not advocating. We're not advertising this channel.
Yes.
We're not affiliated with them in any way. I'm not recommending them to you. This is just one random
We are
video I
not
saw.
promoting, not promoting, not
Not
promoting
promoting this
channel.
video. But the video was it was about why smart people smoke, even though they know it's bad for them, and it was all about how pervasive smoking is in every part of your life and how easily it touches and fits into every part of your life and how it provides a benefit to the person. In the form of stress relief. It gives them a cognitive boost, gives them a little feel good time, and that's what makes it so hard to quit. You're just constantly surrounded by all of your triggers. Like because everything is your because it's so seamlessly integrated into society. It's becoming less so. It's becoming less so now. With all the laws against like smoking in airplanes or
Oh yeah.
restaurants and stuff. And people smoked in restaurants still when I was a child. Like I remember having to say like non-smoking section, please.
Similar with alcohol, right? Like alcohol, like the smoking of yesteryear is like alcohol is still pervasive, and I'm pretty sure alcohol will be pervasive throughout the entirety of human history. But you see it all over the place, and like it's like alcoholism is another one of those vices, right? Since I don't have exactly many vices, like comparatively
Well,
to other
that's
people,
why
and a lot of us
smoking is
don't.
so much different though, because
Mhm.
it's like a microdose. You get a microdose constantly. You don't. Nobody microdoses alcohol.
Mhm.
Nobody just takes a sip. Yeah, I don't want to derail us. Oh, sorry.
No, it's one of those things where it's like the more you drink alcohol, the more alcohol you need to get you tipsy and all of that, right? So like eventually it's like little amounts of alcohol don't get you drunk or tipsy anymore, right? But that's just one of those vices, right? Vices tend to do that where like the more you do it, the more your brain says yes, 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 so the more you have to take in general, right? And I think I'm derailing from your derailing back onto the re-rail,
You
right? But it's
derailed
like
my derailment.
yeah, back onto the original rail here, where it's like when you daydream, it's fine, and for a lot of people, it's fine because they don't need it as like an external source of like entertainment, or they don't need it as an external source of like love or anything like that, or like stimulation, right? But then like eventually, it's like if you get really deep into it and you rely a lot on it, then eventually, like the more you just daydream more and more and more and more to get that same sort of hit, right?
Exactly. Like, yeah. So when I was watching that video, like, I've already quit smoking. So he sent that to me after I had quit. So it wasn't particularly helpful for that. But the whole time I was watching it, I was like, this is what gives maladapt. This is like the same. Like you could just substitute maladaptive
Uh-huh.
daydreaming for the word smoking, and this video would still make perfect fucking sense. Almost,
It's
almost.
like, but that's
They
like the
haven't
thing, right?
outlawed daydreaming in restaurants yet.
Well, that's the thing, right? Is it's like daydreaming, just like most of, like it's just maladaptive daydreaming is just another vice, right? And there's like what I was saying before is it's like I might not have as many vices as other people, right? But in lieu of not, I don't know, drinking or smoking or gambling or whatever vice, take your pick, is it's like I daydream instead, and it's like that for a lot of people, right? Well, for maladaptive daydreamers, I think it's like you have maladaptive daydreaming as a vice, so maybe like in terms of vices in general, you don't need to rely on other ones as much. I don't know. I just know that it's like that for my case. So I try to stay away from other vices because I already have one. It eats up
Oh
all of
yeah,
my time. It already eats up all of my time. I don't need to be smoking or anything like that.
my maladaptive daydreaming made it a lot harder to quit smoking because that's what I did when I went out for a cigarette. Like that was my
You,
guaranteed like little break. I didn't want to let go of it.
instead of quitting smoking, maybe you could daydream instead of daydream of smoking instead. Ooh,
Oh
how
my god,
enticing is that?
you dream about smoking when you quit smoking. You dream about it.
Yes,
That's so.
I heard that you can dream about smoking.
I
Yeah.
wonder if that would happen with maladaptive daydreaming if you would dream about daydreaming.
Wow, that's strange to think about. But no, right? I think that's the crux of it.
My therapist had said to me that what if you try to put some of the elements from your daydream into your real life. I have tried that, though it doesn't feel the same.
Hmm.
I don't know if, yeah, like I've tried, but yeah, it's I don't know, it feels strange. It doesn't fit. Like it's almost like trying to put a puzzle together, and a piece is supposed to go somewhere, but you realize it's not the right piece, but you don't know where else to put the piece, really.
It's like I think we talked about on an earlier episode. I forget what you called it, Dimmer. It was Paris something or other. It's like Paris syndrome or something like that, where like it's this sort of phenomena where people dream of going to Paris because it's such a romanticized city, and then you get to Paris and it's not quite the same as you had imagined, right? You're like forced to look at what Paris really is, like a city, right? The
Yeah.
romanticized version is not, what exactly exists in reality, and that sort of dissonance, that sort of the difference in what you had imagined and what you actually get, like the difference is enough to be very off-putting.
Yeah, that advice has never resonated with me. The make your daydreams a reality, because they're not reality, they're fantasy. I have zero desire to be what my daydreams are.
Right. It can only work for certain, depending on the daydreams themselves.
Hmm.
Yeah,
And,
yeah.
and at the end of the day, it's like you said, they were fantasy, right? Rather than like a reality that you could sort of you can
Well,
work towards it for sure.
my
But
daydreams are very fantastical. Like I'm never going to be king of the space elves, but but even with fantastical daydreams like that, like
hmm.
you know,
Well, it's
You
the
could
classic.
be.
It's the classic humans flying, right? It's like humans have always dreamed of flying, and then when they finally got to it, the reality that they ended up like the solution was planes, like airplanes, right? So now we have airplanes. Like humans fly, but they don't fly in the way that we had imagined, and we're still working towards like jetpacks and like wings and stuff like that. But it's like it's like not exactly the same. At least as of now, when you put your dreams into reality, it's not quite there. It's like I imagine it like this. It's like what you imagined, but shifted slightly to the left, and that
because I
shift.
don't yeah, because I don't think what people imagine is ever what they actually want. It's just what they don't have, and what you don't have isn't always what you want. Like you dream of flying, but you're not actually dreaming of flying. You're dreaming of freedom, maybe. But even if I were daydreaming of freedom, I don't want freedom. I want to stay with my family in my
Mhm.
home. I'm not going to hit the open road and just live a carefree life. I don't want that. But maybe I daydream it because I don't have it. Like there's a big difference
Mhm.
there, I think. I can't remember what we were even talking about anymore. Are we still on topic?
No, the answer is no. But we still. I'm going to be honest. It was a very fun romp to go through. Honestly, like I really, really, really want a lot of things, but I'm not about to say that I'm gonna like. I'm not about to. What's like something super strange? I'm not about to. I can't imagine the strangest daydream I've had recently. Most of mine have been pretty tame, but at the same time, it's like I'm not about to go out and lift a city into the sky.
See, I think for me, because mine, well, there some sort of my life, but with some noticeable changes. It's sort of sad that I can't make a lot of those a reality. So I think that's why for me, that's where the maladaptive comes in, because it's like that's where the depression starts. But again, I can't stop the daydreaming, and I don't want to, because even if I can't live it in the reality, I can live it in the daydream. So I'll deal
Hmm.
with the depression, even though I know that's not a good thing. So it's like a double edged sword.
Hmm. And the potency of a double-edged sword is often offset by like if you're willing to wield the double-edged sword, right? Like you get the ups and you get the downs, right? It's just like whether or not you want to deal with the down, like the lowest parts of that double-edged sword. And if you want to change, right, like you do, like you will have to put in the effort. It is a long and hard road, but for a lot of people, Red Halo mentioned that his life then drastically improved since he started working on his maladaptive daydreaming. It was a massive turning point in his life, but it might be that way for you as well. It's like I'm not going to say that it's not easy,
Right.
but it's worth working on all the same.
That's why I'm in therapy. I promote therapy for those that think that it definitely helps.
If you don't mind the maladaptive daydreaming, I mean, at least acknowledge that there are negatives to it,
Yeah,
right?
see, that's it. That's where I am.
If you're at the very least willing to accept that they're there, right? Because they are there, whether or not it makes sense right now. They are there. There are negatives to it, and maybe it gives you everything you want in the moment. And believe me, I think we can all agree that it feels real good to daydream. But like at least acknowledging that those negatives are there would be bare minimum for you. What's the words that I'm thinking of, Dimmer? It would be good for you to at least acknowledge it. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Or should I word that better? I don't know.
No,
Yeah.
that makes sense.
It does.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that's one of the first steps too. If you think you might be a maladaptive daydreamer, one of the first things you should do is sit down and maybe like, I don't know, do the like pros and cons list, or what do they call it in AA? I think it's called the Fearless Moral Inventory. I don't know if it's the same thing
Whoa.
actually. I never completed the steps.
That was a
I'm
lot.
not an alcoholic. I should. No, it was augmented for maladaptive daydreaming.
Yeah, it's just like you might not see it as a problem, and maybe it's not, but for you, but at least say, like, acknowledge that those problems are there.
But no, if it's not a problem for you, then why would you acknowledge problems?
Well, hold on, Dimmer. Maybe that wasn't the right way to put it. I'm sitting here because it's like a lot of people don't think of it as an issue, right? Or they don't realize that they have a problem. But
Well, I mean, they can ask themselves too, like, would they, like, okay, if I, in my daydream, say hypothetically, I am a journalist, but I'd rather daydream about being a journalist and all of that entails than actually do it, which, it's hard work and whatnot. That could be an issue because you'd rather daydream than actually try to do something. Because the daydream you can control, but the reality you can't control whether the, say, journalism career would be successful.
If you want to be a journalist, because like I think that happens all the time too. I think people will daydream about being like a famous musician, but they don't actually want to be a musician. They just want to be seen. That's what I was saying before. Like, and then they'll think like, oh, if I can bring this into reality, but then they don't want to do it, and then they feel like a failure, and no, you were just never actually interested in music.
That's true, yeah.
But yeah, one of the things I tell people when they're trying to figure out if their daydreaming is maladaptive or not is to stop. And I can't remember if we've talked about this. Maybe in season 1 we did. Because it sounds stupid. It sounds like just stop daydreaming. So if you're not a maladaptive daydreamer at all, then you'll just be like, okay. Okay.
Yeah.
There you go. You're probably not one. Probably not even an immersive daydreamer if you can just not do it and not even hesitate. And then there's like, so the immersive and the maladaptive daydreamers will be like, okay, no, what? You can do that? No, you can't do that. And that's the point. If you try to do that, weird things are going to start happening to you. You're going to realize that you can't. You're going to start feeling the urges. You might notice depression or anxiety or unrelenting boredom and listlessness.
You will be going through withdrawal.
You will see something there, and that's how you know. Well, I mean, that's not how you know. That is another data point to add.
It is an indicator.
An indicator, exactly. Just another indication of things that you might need to look into. Because maybe it's a coping mechanism for that anxiety you're feeling, and in an adaptive and happy way. Or maybe it's just covering up your anxiety, and it's it's avoidance. It's, a detrimental avoidance technique that you need to address so that you can learn how to actually cope.
Yeah, the reason that I was mentioning before that you should at least acknowledge it, even if you don't think it's a problem, is because the listener had mentioned how they didn't see it as a negative, or at least it's hard to imagine it as a negative thing for them. But eventually, like there are drawbacks to daydreaming, right? Especially like being as and what was the word I used before? Enticing as maladaptive daydreaming is it's like even if you don't see it as much of an issue, it would be worth noting that there are drawbacks. Which of course, like at bare minimum, it takes a lot of time out of your day, right? At bare minimum, at least if you ask me, right? And then of course there's other problems too. But that's why I mentioned it before.
Yeah. Another I don't know, I just had a passing thought it's a little ranty though, but like okay, I like our listener here who sent that email because they're confused, but they got the spirit, right? They're acknowledging things even if they don't quite believe them yet. like, I don't know, I was just so grateful that
Oh yeah.
they're acknowledged because the people are just like, they're just like, oh well, this isn't a problem for me, so why is it a problem for you? Shut the hell up. Not everybody's experience is the same. This is a real problem.
Yes. Like those kinds of people, there's a lot of people, but it's one of those things where it's just like it's difficult to explain unless you're there, right? When I appreciate that they recognize that. Well, I don't want to repeat you, but
yeah. So Halo put something in the chat that made me realize how far we've strayed off topic. People can also have issues and problems from daydreams that they don't realize that they have, which was something that I think the email brought up, or maybe I just thought of it and don't remember thinking of it. The point is,
we've been derailing.
Oh my god, we're all over the place tonight.
There's a late night recording, everybody.
Point is, we have known about MD for at least a little while. And we have done our own personal research and our own personal like looking inward and figuring out our own shit. And I feel like I'm swearing a lot this episode.
I'm telling you, it's late night.
It's these late night ones, yeah. So are there things that you eventually realized you did not realize were a problem coming from your daydreaming?
Mm-hmm. Like, are you asking? Hold on, repeat that real fast. You said realized twice, and my brain went on overdrive.
So at this point in sort of your MD journey, are you things that you now recognize as problems stemming from your daydreaming that you never associated with your daydreaming before?
Yes. I mean, it's I become obsessive in trying to find things to put in my daydreams where whether it's like a person or things or the emotions tied to it then I deal with it in reality, so then I could be very depressed or very anxious, and yet it's not the same in reality, so I shouldn't be depressed or anxious. So yeah, I definitely see those behaviors now, but I didn't see them before.
For me, it was just I realized that I was trying 10 times, 100 times harder to get the most basic stuff done. The most basics of tasks, like studying for an hour uninterrupted.
Oh
you
yeah,
gotta be
that
nuts.
too. Yeah.
Uninterrupted is a big one because I was like, oh, okay, so I'll just study for
Reading too.
Oh my god, reading. You'd get through 2 paragraphs before you drift off.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
I never had ambition. Like I never had lofty goals or anything for myself. Like I have always been content with just a chill little uneventful life. So I was fine. Even after I learned that about maladaptive daydreaming and recognized, because I always knew that there was something different and something wrong. I'm doing air quotes with me. I knew there were a lot of negatives, but even after learning about it and putting two and two together in my brain, I ignored them. I wouldn't say I wasn't in denial. I knew they were bad. I didn't care. I didn't
Hmm.
care enough to change, um, because I was fine with just coasting through life. Like I didn't. It worked. I didn't want anything better for myself until I had a kid, and that was my catalyst because I didn't. I don't want to say I didn't realize that certain things were a problem, but certain things don't become a problem enough to deal with until you have something important that they're getting in the way of. And I didn't have that until children.
Well, it's like circumstances change, right? And like
Yeah.
normally, let's say the amount of free time you have to daydream, suddenly something has come up where you no longer have that free time. And now the time that you need to be doing something that would normally be taken up by your daydreams is still being taken up by your daydreams, but you don't have the time anymore. It's so you at that point you say, what do you do? Because now there's an issue with that X amount of hours in the day that you can't daydream anymore. Because okay, you can continue to daydream, but that new thing that came up is going to have to suffer because of it. Or you can choose to not daydream and then go through with the withdrawal symptoms or have to deal with the anxiety and the depression and all of that comes from not being able to daydream because you don't have that time anymore, right? That's why, if you ask me, the most basic thing, the most basic negative to having, maladaptive daydreaming is that you lose out on time, right? One of the most precious
Mhm.
resources you have is now gone to your daydreams. And maybe that's not so much of a, no, not so much of a problem right now, but it might become a problem for you in the future.
Yeah. And that's one of the things, like, I don't. I'm just gonna sound like the old lady, like shaking her finger at the youths of today. But looking back on my life, and sometimes I see younger people saying things that I would have said at that age, and I'm just sitting here like, well, it doesn't bother you now, but just you wait.
Mhm.
Well, it's a classic, right? It's like people
Yeah.
a fun one that people say is what time is money. Well, sure, time is money, but time is also everything else, right?
Right.
So you can put it as nicely as you want, or you can put it as meanly as you want. But like, and okay, so maybe relaxing with your friends or hanging out with friends, that's not exactly time wasted, right? If you love what you do, like that's not exactly time wasted, right? But there is a there I guess the definition of wasted time is different per person. And maybe it's not wasted time to younger people now, if that's what you want to,
I
if
mean,
you're
is it wasted if it makes you happy in the moment though too? I guess that's a question.
Yeah, because then what's the difference with daydreaming?
but for me is it's like wasted time for me. Like I think of doing a lot of things waste time, and I need to stop and smell the roses a bit more often because I'm way too much go 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 go. But that's my life, right? In my life, what people call it, like like a grind set or whatever, these like grind, like the daily grind, right?
Yeah.
But like improving yourself all the time, always, right? It runs you dry pretty quickly. And some people can do it, some people can't. I need to like slow down in my life a little bit more, right? And maybe that comes from the fact that I daydream. Like it pushes me to, when I'm not daydreaming, to do things to improve myself, right? Maybe that's how it goes for me. But when it comes to like wasted time, it depends on the person. Some people want to get rich, like legitimately want to make a boatload of money. So any amount of time not
Halo's life goal.
that right, yeah, like a Halo out here. It's like, but for a lot of people like who want to make money, if you're not making money, any time's not spent making money is not worth not time well spent. Maybe you don't want to make an infinite amount of money. Look, I would love to have a bajillion dollars, right? I think a lot of people would love to have a bajillion dollars, right? But to me, like I'm more interested in leading a just like a leisurely life where I can just enjoy what I do and not have
Mhm.
to go so fast all the time, always, which is what I do. But like that comes down to that's the question of what do you consider wasted time, right? Do you consider maladaptive daydreaming wasted time? If the answer is yes, then you might want to look into like stopping, stop maladaptive daydreaming or at least like lower it a little bit. But I mean that can only be done that question can only be answered by you.
Yeah, I think a lot of people, they're like, I'm not hurting anybody, so what's the problem?
Right.
And
Yeah.
I'm fine. Like, not telling you have a problem. If that's the life that makes you happy, I could give a shit. Like, do it. But then I just don't understand why you're in a maladaptive daydreaming community telling other people that it's not a big deal. Like, don't do that.
For
Don't do
some people,
that.
it is.
Yeah,
Because for
like,
some people it is, right? And that really is bothersome, right? Because then it's like, okay, so your maladaptive daydreaming isn't hurting anybody else, but you telling other people that them doing it where it's affecting their life, that is bothering other people, if that makes sense, right?
Right.
I don't want to be the police, right? Like, obviously. Like, I don't like the maladaptive daydreaming online internet, keyboard warrior police, right? I don't want to be that guy. But that is rather bothersome to deal with, especially when some of us have a hard time with maladaptive daydreaming, if that makes
and the
sense.
thing is, I think some of those people are going to realize that that's not what they want for their life. Some of them will probably be fine with it forever.
Mhm.
But some of those people, I think, are just in a bad spot, or in denial, or for
It could be one of
whatever
many
reason.
things.
Yeah, they're just in a place where that's how they feel, and later they're going to feel differently. Some of them,
And it's fine
and
to change your opinion, right?
oh yeah, it's fine to
It's
change your
change.
mind. The point is, like, nobody's gonna do that for, like, nobody is coming to save you. Nobody can come save you. We don't know what's in your heart. Like, you have to do that on your own. And shit, I lost my train of thought there. Yeah, I don't know what I was saying. Yeah, oh, it was the audience member. I was saying, sorry, I'm trying to get it out before I forget again. The the guy who wrote the email, or the girl, I'm sorry, I don't know. Their name is Happy.
Mhm,
I feel like that's something they were trying to kind of ask. I felt like they were asking, like, how do you know? How do you know? And we just don't have an answer.
mhm.
When you know.
Right. And that is by far the worst advice, but it's true. It's a horrible advice. It's god awful, but like at the end of the day, it's like it's one of these things where it's like you have to experience it for you to know.
Yeah. So we can share our experience with how we came to experience that it was maladaptive daydreaming.
As we
So
did earlier, but
yeah, yeah. Just for me, it was, just to summarize. I just knew. I immediately knew I had always known. I don't know why. I just did.
mhm,
And for me, it was, well, YouTube and yeah, well, YouTube really kind of
mhm,
just showed me a video. I'm like, ah, so that's what that is. And then realizing when I was in my 20s.
mhm. For me, I didn't know until way later. But even if I did, I wouldn't have cared. I think the reason I never
Yeah.
really tried to figure out if I had a problem or not was because at the time, it wasn't a problem to me. Even though it was technically like unhealthy and technically, quote, not productive, right? Like, even though it wasn't exactly keeping me in tip top shape or in tip top form, right? It's like, it didn't matter to me because at the time I deemed it necessary. Well, that was a strange way of enunciating that. I deemed it necessary to keep doing it, to keep maladaptive daydreaming. So I did. And I learned later, right? But it didn't matter if it was normal or not, if it was good or not, or
Right.
bad or not. It got me through the day. It got me through
Yeah.
many
And it
days.
made, right. And it made you happy in
Hmm.
some ways, or made you feel good.
Oh yeah. And the ups and downs, right? Like I desired having friends so very, very badly. Like I wanted friends, but it didn't matter where I went when I tried to get friends. It just like because I actively tried to do so in grade school, but it didn't matter because it all turned sour no matter what I did. So it's like I just always fell back on it because if it kept feeling sour, I kept doing it, right? So it was something that got me through the day. So at the time, not bad, right? Even though there were negatives to it, I was willing
Right.
to hold the double-edged sword, even though it cut my hand as I held it.
Right. I like how you phrase that. That's
Mhm.
perfect.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
I wield might be another good way to do it. Is it's like I was willing to hold the double-edged sword, even though it cut me as I was wielding it. Oh, that doesn't sound as good. Never mind. Sorry, off track. That's the point, right? Is it's like, is it a problem for you? You are the only one who knows, and you're
Right.
the only one who can know.
And with that,
All right, so that'll be all for Parallel Lives this week, or these 2 weeks. We'll see you. We'll see you soon. Remember that if we're on Reddit, we're on Spotify. Yes. Which are the ones, Dimmer? List them off. Quick fire
What?
away.
where
Where where are we found?
In a lot
We're
of
found on YouTube. I know we're on YouTube and Spotify. We're a lot of places.
Google, Pocket Cast, Anchor, Apple, yeah, all the normal places.
Absolutely. Apple Podcasts, that sort of deal. And for those of you on YouTube, tell us when you learned you had MD, and like and comment if you want to. Helps us out a little bit. But for the most part, just if you enjoy listening, let us know. We love doing these episodes, and we love having you around to listen to us. But we'll see you soon, and that's all we have for today.
Bye.
Bye.
Oh, you can cut out. Hold on. Let's do it all together now. 1, 2, 3.
Bye.
See you, everybody.
Bye.